The Chevrolet Bel Air was not just a car, it was an icon that came to represent the optimism, style, and prosperity of post-war America. Born from the fertile imagination of General Motors engineers and stylists in the early 1950s, the Bel Air symbolized the new world emerging from the ashes of World War II, a world of freedom, consumer confidence, and bright chrome under the American sun. When Chevrolet introduced the first Bel Air in 1950, it was more than a vehicle, it was a promise of progress on four wheels. The United States was entering a decade of booming industry and suburban growth. Highways stretched farther, families expanded, and for the first time, owning a car became a declaration of identity. The Bel Air emerged into this cultural moment as a car that offered beauty, comfort, and a new level of accessibility that allowed ordinary Americans to feel extraordinary. Chevrolet had already built a reputation for reliability and value through the 1930s and 1940s, but by 1950, the company knew that the American public was ready for something more glamorous. The country's mood had shifted, the austerity of wartime rationing was replaced by a hunger for color, design, and luxury. Harley Earl, the legendary head of General Motors' styling section, had long envisioned a new aesthetic, sleek lines inspired by aviation, flowing chrome, and bold two-tone paint jobs that evoked both confidence and motion. The Chevrolet Bel Air would become the realization of this dream, bringing luxury car styling into reach of the middle class. It was designed to make a statement even when parked at the local drive-in diner, glowing under the neon lights, its polished chrome reflecting the laughter and optimism of a new generation. The first Bel Airs, introduced in 1950, were part of Chevrolet's Deluxe series, and the name Bel Air initially referred to a specific hardtop coupe body style. It combined the sportiness of a convertible with the practicality of a sedan, featuring no visible B-pillar and a solid steel roof that gave it a low, elegant profile. It was a design triumph. Consumers immediately recognized that Chevrolet had created something special, something aspirational yet attainable. The name itself, Bel Air, was chosen to evoke a sense of sophistication and California glamour. It conjured images of palm-lined boulevards, drive-ins, and the carefree rhythm of the new American lifestyle. Over time, Bel Air evolved from a trim level to an entire model line, ultimately defining Chevrolet's image throughout the 1950s. The early 1950s models were stylish, but it was the mid-decade redesign that truly launched the Bel Air into legend. In 1955, Chevrolet introduced what is often called the Tri-5 series, three model years, 1955, 1956, and 1957, that are now considered some of the most beloved and collectible American cars ever built. The 1955 Bel Air marked a revolution in both engineering and design. Under the hood lay the new 265 cubic inch V8 engine, Chevrolet's first small-block V8, a compact, efficient, and powerful motor that would become one of the most influential engines in automotive history. Its lightweight aluminum pistons and overhead valves gave it a combination of power and reliability that astonished the industry. For the first time, Chevrolet could offer performance that rivaled more expensive brands like Ford's Thunderbird or even some European sports cars. This engine's descendants would power Corvettes, Camaros, and countless Chevrolets for decades, a testament to its engineering brilliance. But it wasn't just the mechanics that captured the public imagination, it was the look. The 1955 Bel Air arrived like a Hollywood star stepping onto the red carpet. Its clean, modern lines replaced the rounded forms of the early 1950s with straight fenders, sharp tail fins, and a bold, egg crate grille that gleamed with confidence. Chrome was everywhere, from the bumpers to the side moldings, and customers could choose vibrant two-tone color combinations that celebrated the era's fascination with space, technology, and youth. The car seemed to smile, its wide grille like the grin of America itself. The interior was equally stunning, featuring color-coordinated upholstery, stainless steel trim, and a dashboard that felt like the cockpit of a jet plane. Driving a Bel Air in 1955 was not just transportation, it was participation in a cultural movement. Every drive down Route 66, every stop at a diner, every flick of the turn signal carried with it the rhythm of the American dream. The 1956 Bel Air refined this formula even further, offering new safety features, a slightly more powerful engine lineup, and updated styling with a more pronounced chrome sweep along the side. It was the car for families that wanted sophistication, power, and comfort all in one package. By now, the Bel Air had become a status symbol, something that represented not just success, but good taste. Chevrolet marketing was brilliant in reinforcing this image. Advertisements portrayed the Bel Air as the car of modern America, showing smiling couples on Sunday drives, families loading picnic baskets into the spacious trunk, or young men proudly washing their cars in front of tidy suburban homes. The message was clear: to own a Bel Air was to belong to the future. Then came 1957, and with it, the masterpiece. The 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air remains one of the most recognizable and celebrated American cars ever produced. It was a rolling sculpture of chrome and steel, with soaring tail fins tipped with anodized aluminum inserts, a bold V emblem under the hood ornament, and twin rocket-inspired taillights that seemed ready to take flight. The 1957 model year represented the height of 1950s automotive extravagance, big, bright, and unapologetically bold. Under the hood, the 283 cubic inch V8 engine was now available with optional fuel injection, a cutting-edge technology for the time. With this setup, the Bel Air could produce up to 283 horsepower, 1 horsepower per cubic inch, an astonishing figure that made it one of the most powerful production cars of its era. The car wasn't just beautiful, it was fast. It was this combination of beauty, power, and accessibility that made the Bel Air immortal. It appeared in countless films, songs, and television shows. Elvis Presley drove one. Teenagers dreamed of cruising in one. It was the car you saw at the drive-in theater, the car parked outside the high school dance, the car that carried newlyweds away from their wedding reception with tin cans clattering behind it. The Bel Air became the four-wheeled embodiment of 1950s Americana, a symbol of prosperity, freedom, and joy. Its image was so powerful that decades later, even people who had never lived through the 1950s could recognize it instantly and feel its nostalgic pull. To see a 1957 Bel Air is to feel something of that lost era, when America's highways were still new and dreams still seemed limitless. As the 1960s arrived, the world began to change, and so did the Bel Air. The exuberant tail fins and chrome excess of the 1950s gave way to sleeker, more conservative lines. The 1959 and 1960 Bel Air models, for instance, featured elongated, horizontal designs, cat's eye taillights, and low, wide stances that reflected new trends in aerodynamics and space-age influence. The cars grew larger and heavier, but they still carried the prestige of the name. The Bel Air was no longer just a symbol of youthful rebellion or suburban optimism, it had matured along with the nation itself. It became a family car, a reliable companion for the daily commute and weekend trips to the countryside. Yet, even as it adapted to new times, the essence of the Bel Air remained: style, comfort, and that unmistakable Chevrolet charm. In the early 1960s, the Bel Air stood between two worlds. It was no longer the top-of-the-line luxury model, that role now belonged to the Impala, but it still offered exceptional quality and refinement. The interiors became more spacious, the engines more powerful, and the ride smoother. Chevrolet's engineers continuously improved suspension systems, braking, and handling, ensuring that the Bel Air kept pace with technological progress. In 1962, for instance, the Bel Air could be ordered with the legendary 409 cubic inch V8 engine, an option that turned this family car into a genuine performance machine. This engine would later inspire the Beach Boys' famous song, 409, immortalizing the power of Chevrolet in American pop culture. The Bel Air could now be a family sedan during the week and a dragstrip contender on the weekend, a versatility that few cars could match. The Bel Air's success was not confined to the United States. It became an export hero, finding eager buyers in Canada, Australia, and even parts of Europe. In many countries, the Bel Air was seen as the ultimate American luxury, massive, shiny, and full of personality. In places like Cuba, where many 1950s Chevrolets still roam the streets today, the Bel Air remains a living monument to durability and craftsmanship. Mechanics have kept these cars running for more than half a century, using ingenuity and resourcefulness to keep the engines alive. In Havana, a 1957 Bel Air painted turquoise or cherry red is not just a taxi, it's a time capsule on wheels, still evoking the spirit of 1950s America even in a completely different world. The emotional connection people formed with the Bel Air was unique. It wasn't simply about design or power, it was about what the car represented. In the 1950s, America was building its identity as a modern superpower. The Bel Air became part of that narrative. It appeared in advertisements alongside jet airplanes, refrigerators, and suburban houses, the holy trinity of mid-century progress. It was the car of the atomic age, designed to look fast even when standing still, to feel luxurious even when bought on a modest salary. It embodied the American ideal that anyone, through hard work, could own something beautiful and powerful. To drive a Bel Air was to participate in the dream of progress, mobility, and self-expression. By the mid-1960s, the automotive landscape was changing. Compact cars were becoming popular, the muscle car era was on the horizon, and consumer tastes were evolving. The Bel Air, once the crown jewel of Chevrolet's lineup, gradually gave way to new stars like the Impala, Malibu, and later the Camaro. Yet, the Bel Air remained in production as a dependable and stylish full-size car through the 1970s, serving police departments, taxi fleets, and families alike. Its final years were quiet, but the legacy it left behind was thunderous. Even as production ended, the Bel Air's image continued to shine in car shows, classic car clubs, and Hollywood films. It was never forgotten. Its shape, its chrome, its roar, these things stayed etched into America's collective memory. Even today, collectors and enthusiasts treat the Chevrolet Bel Air as a sacred piece of automotive history. Restorers spend years bringing these cars back to life, polishing every curve, rechroming every detail, and ensuring that the V8 engines still purr with the same vitality they did 70 years ago. At classic car shows, crowds gather around a pristine 1957 Bel Air as if admiring a masterpiece. And in many ways, that's exactly what it is, a masterpiece of industrial art. Every fin, every line, every sparkle of chrome tells a story of an era when America dared to dream bigger and shine brighter. The Bel Air was not just a car, it was an expression of national confidence, of optimism that the road ahead was endless and full of promise. As the 1960s unfolded, America was undergoing profound cultural shifts. The era of innocence that had defined the 1950s was giving way to a decade of revolution, experimentation, and redefinition. The Chevrolet Bel Air, once a symbol of youthful optimism and suburban prosperity, found itself adapting to a new landscape. The car that had once reflected the dreams of post-war America now mirrored the complexities of a society in motion. The Bel Air evolved, not just mechanically, but philosophically. It became a bridge between tradition and change, comfort and innovation, nostalgia and progress. Chevrolet's designers recognized that the Bel Air had to retain its charm while keeping pace with new expectations in safety, performance, and practicality. By 1961, the Bel Air shared its basic structure with the new Impala and Biscayne models, forming part of Chevrolet's expanding full-size lineup. The styling was more restrained than in the flamboyant 1950s, featuring clean, flowing lines, modest tail fins, and a more aerodynamic profile. The American car industry had begun to embrace the idea of space-age modernity, and this was reflected in the Bel Air's design, a subtle nod to efficiency, precision, and progress. Underneath the body, the Bel Air featured advanced suspension systems and a choice of powerful engines, including the famous 348 and 409 cubic inch V8s. These engines transformed what was essentially a family car into a machine capable of serious performance. Young drivers in the early 1960s began to see the Bel Air not only as a symbol of style but as a sleeper car capable of astonishing speed on the drag strip. The introduction of the 409 V8 in 1961 gave rise to a new legend. Producing up to 425 horsepower, the Bel Air 409 was a beast disguised in a gentleman's suit. With its unassuming body and understated chrome, it could outrun many sports cars of the era. The Beach Boys immortalized this engine in their 1962 hit song, 409, with the lyrics, "She's real fine, my 409, capturing the pride and thrill that came with owning such a car. This cultural moment reinforced Chevrolet's image as a brand that understood the desires of American youth, power, freedom, and individuality. A generation of young Americans learned to love cars through the sound of that deep V8 rumble, and the Bel Air stood at the center of that experience. Through the early 1960s, Chevrolet continued refining the Bel Air's identity. It was no longer the flagship it once had been. The Impala had taken over that role, but it retained a loyal customer base. For families who wanted quality and space without excessive luxury, the Bel Air offered the perfect balance. Its interiors grew more comfortable, featuring improved materials, better ergonomics, and elegant simplicity. Chevrolet advertisements of the time emphasized dependability, economy, and American craftsmanship. The Bel Air was portrayed as the car that works hard, rides easy, and lasts long. It had matured, becoming the trusted companion of Middle America. Yet beneath that reliability lay a pulse of power, reminding everyone that this was still a descendant of the mighty 1957 icon. By the mid-1960s, the American car market had begun to fragment. Compact cars like the Chevrolet Corvair and foreign imports were gaining attention. Muscle cars were emerging, and consumer tastes were shifting toward variety and specialization. The Bel Air, built on the full-size B-body platform, became one of Chevrolet's most versatile designs, serving not only families but also government agencies and businesses. Police departments across the country adopted the Bel Air for its durability and performance. Taxi companies favored it for its roomy interior and low maintenance costs. The Bel Air had transitioned from being a dream car to being an essential part of American life, reliable, familiar, and dignified. It was the car that had grown up with America, evolving alongside the very people who had once adored it as teenagers in the 1950s. The 1965 redesign brought a new era of refinement. The Bel Air received a longer wheelbase, more squared-off styling, and even smoother handling. Chevrolet introduced innovations such as the turbo-hydromatic automatic transmission and improved power steering, which made the car easier to drive than ever before. The model now embodied the comfort and serenity of long highway journeys. The American road trip, once a new idea in the 1950s, was now a national pastime, and the Bel Air was one of the cars that made it possible. Families packed the trunk with luggage, rolled down the windows, and set out across the country on the newly completed interstate highways. The Bel Air became part of countless family memories, seen through the eyes of children staring out at the open road while the car hummed steadily beneath them. By the late 1960s, the Bel Air was a respected name but no longer a cultural icon in the way it had been a decade earlier. The age of chrome and fins was over. Now, performance and practicality reigned supreme. Chevrolet's lineup was expanding with new models like the Chevelle, Nova, and Camaro, cars that spoke to a younger, sportier audience. The Bel Air, however, remained the steadfast choice for those who valued tradition. It was still available with powerful V8 options and retained its clean, timeless design. It had become an American classic in real time, even before its production ended. There was something reassuring about its presence, a reminder of simpler days, of drive-ins and jukeboxes, of an America that was confident and united. In the 1970s, the Bel Air entered its final chapter. The energy crisis, stricter emissions regulations, and changing social attitudes forced automakers to rethink their strategies. Large, powerful cars were losing popularity, and efficiency became the new priority. The Bel Air continued as a full-size sedan primarily for fleet and institutional use. Police, taxi, and government versions were produced through the decade, serving faithfully until the model name was retired in the mid-1970s. It was a quiet farewell for a car that had once defined an era of noise, color, and motion. But the end of production did not mark the end of its influence. The Bel Air's spirit lived on in the collective imagination of car enthusiasts, historians, and anyone who had ever fallen in love with the idea of the open road. As years passed, nostalgia for the 1950s grew stronger. The Bel Air, especially the 1955 to 1957 models, became the centerpiece of a cultural revival that celebrated mid-century design, rock and roll, and American optimism. Classic car shows, television reruns, and movies all helped reintroduce the Bel Air to new generations. Films like American Graffiti and Grease featured gleaming Chevrolets as symbols of youth and freedom, instantly recognizable to audiences around the world. The car's silhouette, with its sweeping fins and confident stance, became synonymous with a bygone era that people continued to romanticize. The Bel Air became a time machine, each restored example carrying with it the spirit of drive-ins, soda fountains, and the golden glow of neon lights reflected on polished chrome. Collectors and restorers embraced the Bel Air as one of the crown jewels of American automotive history. The Tri-5 series, in particular, achieved near-mythical status among enthusiasts. Restoration shops across the United States dedicated themselves to bringing these cars back to factory perfection, sourcing original parts, reproducing exact paint shades, and preserving every curve and emblem. Car clubs formed, some exclusively devoted to the Bel Air, and they became communities bound by a shared love of design and nostalgia. Owners gathered at events like the Hot Rod Power Tour and Classic Car Meets, where the sound of idling V8s filled the air and stories flowed as easily as the engines purred. The Bel Air was not merely restored, it was revered. It became a symbol of craftsmanship, resilience, and identity. What makes the Bel Air timeless is not just its beauty, but its emotional resonance. It represents more than an automobile, it captures the very essence of what people once believed the American dream to be: freedom of movement, prosperity earned through hard work, and the joy of self-expression through style. Even people who have never owned or driven one understand what it stands for. When someone sees a 1957 Bel Air today, freshly waxed and gleaming in the sunlight, they are reminded of the power of design to inspire emotion. The car's form speaks to the human spirit's desire to move forward, to go farther, faster, and with elegance. Its chrome and curves are not relics of the past but symbols of enduring aspiration. Beyond the borders of the United States, the Bel Air achieved a different kind of immortality. In countries like Cuba, where American cars from the 1950s became frozen in time, the Bel Air still roams the streets as a living artifact. Mechanics there, working with ingenuity and limited resources, have kept these cars running for more than 6 decades. Under their hoods may now lie Soviet or Japanese engines, yet the body, the unmistakable lines of the Bel Air, remains proudly intact. In this sense, the Bel Air transcended politics and economics. It became an international symbol of endurance and creativity, proof that beauty and utility can coexist across generations. In Cuba, the sight of a turquoise Bel Air cruising along Havana's Malecon at sunset is a reminder that some things, once built with heart and purpose, never truly fade. The Bel Air also influenced automotive design far beyond its own production years. Its balanced proportions, chrome accents, and harmonious blending of sportiness and elegance inspired countless cars that followed. Designers from other manufacturers studied its appeal, trying to understand why it connected so deeply with the public. The answer lay not only in the car's appearance but in its spirit. The Bel Air was approachable yet aspirational, simple yet refined, powerful yet graceful. It managed to be both a luxury object and a family car, an everyday necessity and a cultural statement. That duality made it unique, and explains why it continues to captivate hearts even in the age of electric and autonomous vehicles. In modern times, the Chevrolet Bel Air remains a favorite subject of art, photography, and storytelling. It appears in advertisements, songs, and even digital recreations in video games. Its image has become shorthand for mid-century Americana, the drive-in burger stand, the neon motel sign, the open highway stretching toward the horizon. Customizers have reimagined the Bel Air as well, creating restomod versions that combine classic looks with modern performance. Underneath the same timeless body, you can now find fuel-injected engines, disc brakes, and advanced suspensions, turning the 1950s design into a 21st-century performer. Yet even with these modifications, the Bel Air's soul remains untouched. Its charm lies in its ability to connect the past and present, nostalgia and innovation, memory and motion. Ultimately, the legacy of the Chevrolet Bel Air cannot be measured merely by production numbers or horsepower figures. Its true legacy lies in emotion. It represents an ideal that transcends time, the belief that engineering and beauty can coexist, that technology can serve humanity's desire for joy. For millions of Americans, the Bel Air was more than transportation, it was a companion in their life stories. It took soldiers returning from war to new homes, newlyweds on their first vacations, children to their first day of school. It was present in moments of triumph and tenderness, a silent witness to the unfolding of countless personal histories. That emotional connection is what elevates it beyond a machine, it becomes part of who we are. The Bel Air's continued presence at car shows, museums, and even modern reinterpretations within Chevrolet's brand storytelling proves that legends never truly disappear. Its name still evokes admiration and pride. When a restorer turns the key and the small-block V8 rumbles to life, it's not just metal and gasoline responding, it's history itself breathing again. The Bel Air's enduring appeal reminds us that cars, at their best, are about more than speed or status. They are about connection, between people, between eras, between dreams and reality. The Chevrolet Bel Air stands as one of the finest expressions of that connection, a timeless symbol of the moment when America learned not just how to build cars, but how to build dreams on wheels. And so, long after its production ceased, the Chevrolet Bel Air continues to travel the highways of memory, gleaming as brightly as the day it first rolled out of the factory. It remains a testament to an age of optimism and creativity, to a generation that believed in progress, and to a company that captured that belief in steel and chrome. Every polished fender, every V8 heartbeat, every reflection of sunlight on its hood reminds us of what the American dream once looked like, and, perhaps, still can. The Bel Air endures because it speaks a universal truth, that beauty, craftsmanship, and hope never go out of style. It was, and will always be, the incredible Chevrolet Bel Air, the car that defined the American dream.